social media child privacy has been a legislative priority for advocates, lawmakers, and high ranking elected officials this year. Recently, Governor Kathy Hochul signed two popular social media child privacy bills into law. The Safer Kids Act would restrict social media companies from using addictive feeds, and the New York Child Data Protection Act would restrict online sites from collecting the personal information of kids. Supporters say that addictive social media feeds negatively impact the mental health of kids. Meanwhile, tech leaders express opposition to the legislation, arguing that they may prevent users from building community and accessing resources. State Senator Andrew Gennardis, who sponsors the legislation, spoke with us about its impact, garnering support, and the possibility of legal challenges. Here's that conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Senator.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for our viewers who may not have been paying close attention to these bills during the legislative session, can you give us some insight into how the New York Safer Kids Act and the Child Data Privacy Act will impact younger New Yorkers?
So basically, what we've been trying to do with these two bills is to respond to the dire public health crisis and mental health crisis affecting young people, largely driven by social media. That's not Andrew Gennardis saying that. That's the U.S. Surgeon General, the chief public health officer in the country, who actually says that social media should come with warning labels because of the impact that it has on teenage mental health. So the Safer Kids Act would restrict the ability of social media platforms to use algorithms to curate content for users under the age of 18 as a default feature. And all that means is that those users would instead have a more chronological based feed that's based on the pages and the accounts that they choose to follow, their friends, their family, the Yankees page, the New York Liberty page, the Taylor Swift fan page, whatever, but that the apps could not use an addictive algorithm to curate content for them that's designed intentionally to keep them scrolling longer and longer and longer and longer just to drive up their ad revenue. The second thing that the Safer Kids Act would do would be limit overnight notifications, which you might think are innocuous. Oh, you're getting a reminder that someone commented on a post, but in fact, all those notifications are designed to do is to get you back onto the apps to keep scrolling again and then to addict you via that algorithm. So both of those features would be turned off. And then under the Child Data Protection Act, we're going to limit the ability of internet companies to collect personal data from minors without their consent, just for commercial purposes. So all in all, this is going to really help tilt the scales of balance back against these companies, which have been profiting immensely off of the mental health crisis that they've helped cause.
And when will these bills be going into effect?
So the governor just signed both of these bills last week, and now for the next 180 days, the attorney general is going to be working on regulations to clarify exactly how the social media companies need to comply with the requirements of the law. And then after that, the law will go into effect, and there'll be a 180-day, basically trial period for the apps to update their softwares in order to comply. But after that, within a year, there'll be full compliance expected with the law.
And what will be the process of age verification for these apps?
So that's going to be part of what the attorney general has to issue with the regulations. But the law basically says that the attorney general's regulations have to be about commercially reasonable methods of age verification. These are by and large techniques and processes that the apps are already doing for their own internal compliance purposes. Think about it. Instagram does not want to be showing a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old content that's geared for a 13-year-old, and they don't because they've developed their own internal methods to determine who is what age. And so by and large, a lot of what the verification requirements that the attorney general's regulations are going to include are going to be based around what the companies are currently doing for their own internal purposes. A lot of these apps have said that they cannot comply with the law, but the fact of the matter is they already know how old their users are. They just don't want to admit it because they don't want to see any of the changes we've proposed come into effect.
And why has child internet safety been one of your top legislative priorities as a lawmaker?
I'm a parent. I have two kids. They're not of social media age yet, but I am terrified, as I know a lot of parents are. And it's not just parents, it's young people themselves who have said they need help. They can't stop themselves from scrolling. Think about cigarettes. We've learned that cigarettes were designed intentionally to addict people, and that tobacco companies were intentionally marketing those cigarettes to kids because they wanted to create lifelong customers. The same thing is happening with social media. And so we know that kids are asking for help. Parents definitely are asking for help. Doctors and pediatricians have said that there's a big problem with social media. Teachers and educators say it's a problem in the classroom. So the more you think about it, and the more you talk about it, and the more you learn about this, you realize just how dire a problem is. And for the last decade, look at some of the statistics. Girls age 11 to 13, their rates of hospital admissions for self-harm have tripled because of social media. That's a terrifying statistic, and there's dozens more like that I could share with you that just points to how dire a problem this really is.
And we know the Attorney General's office was helpful in this legislation. So, can you unpack your working relationship with the Attorney General and her office in terms of getting these bills over the legislative finish line?
Well, first and foremost, both the Attorney General and myself are from Brooklyn, so we already have that bond
Yes.
keeping us together. But the Attorney General's office was really instrumental with us every step of the way, helping us craft the legislative language, talking about strategy, legislative strategy, bill drafting strategy, because ultimately, when these laws get challenged in court, the Attorney General is going to have to be the one to defend them. And so it really is smart for all of us to make sure that her office is part of this process from the very beginning, so that we have the best chance of making sure that these laws survive the litigation that's going to be inevitable, and that we can present the best case forward for how and why these proposals, which are not radical and are not anti-tech, or are not about don't block content or whatever, are really just common sense protections for some of the most vulnerable users of the internet, which are kids.
And how much of an impact would you say having the support of both the Attorney General's office as well as the executive chamber had on getting these bills over the finish line?
Oh, it was really tremendous. I mean, first of all, in order to get anything to become a law, you need the governor's support. You need the governor's
Mhm.
signature. So when the governor signals and says from the very beginning of the process, "I'm behind this 100% of the way," you already know that you can see the finish line, and that you're going to have a new law because of this effort. And so having both the governor and the attorney general support was really instrumental. It called attention to the issue in ways that I by myself, or I and my colleagues could not do. And it really demonstrated the full commitment of all levels and branches of government to try to address this problem, which I said earlier is quite dire, and which needs resolution. It'd be great, honestly, if we didn't have to do this. If Congress, got its act together and passed a national law. But the last time Congress did anything to protect kids on the internet was 1998. We were still getting America Online discs mailed to us every week back then. Think about how much the internet has changed since that time. And so, in the failure of the companies doing the right thing, and in the failure of Congress doing the right thing, it falls to states like New York to lead the way, and lead the way we are. And I'm really proud of that.
And we know there was some criticism from coalitions within the technology industry who argued that the bills would restrict teens from being able to access some of the benefits that come along with social media, such as resources and access to community spaces. So, what is your response to that pushback?
It's false. The apps, like I said earlier, they don't want to change the status quo. They don't want to see any of these regulations put in place for one very important reason, because they make a lot of money off of this. In 2022, the biggest six social media companies made a combined $11 billion in ad sales just off of kids. Forget about us adults. That's just off of kids. So these apps have 11 billion reasons to not want to change anything. That's why they're going around saying that social media is good, that the algorithms are good, that they know what's best for protecting kids. But we know better. We see what's happening all the time. Just last week, the Wall Street Journal reported that Instagram was pushing sexual content to 13-year-olds. I mean, come on. They're going to sit there with a straight face and say they're doing everything they can, and that they know best how to protect kids, and their technology, their algorithm is showing 13-year-olds sexual content. We can do better. That's why we pass these laws.
And are you worried about any potential lawsuits that may come out to prevent these bills from getting into law? Or I know that they've been passed, but essentially being enacted.
We expect the laws to be challenged by either the companies themselves or by their trade associations. We feel we've drafted it in a way that is incredibly strong, that avoids a lot of the legal issues that might otherwise arise whenever you try to regulate forms of speech. We don't believe that an algorithm, a piece of computer code, is uh, protected First Amendment speech, and that nothing in this law goes to touch on the content that is shown on social media. All we are saying is that how that content is being curated for kids needs to be regulated. Very different than saying no social media for kids. Very different than saying you have to ban certain types of content, which is what other states have done, which is why other states have had their laws struck down. Ours takes a very different approach. We are the first state in the country to go after the algorithm itself and not the content.
And how would you describe the overall process of getting these bills passed? Was there anything that surprised you, for example, in terms of the support or even the criticism that you received?
Well, we had unanimous support in the state Senate when the vote came, and we only had one vote against our bill in the state assembly. So I was surprised by just how overwhelmingly supportive both the Democrats and Republicans were of this measure. But I guess I really shouldn't be that surprised because this polls incredibly well. And Karen, like I said earlier, everyone's concerned about what's happening on social media as it relates to young kids. And I'm also not surprised by the opposition that we got from the tech companies because, again, this is their status quo. This is their business model. This is how they make money. And so they don't want to see any regulations put in place. I guess the one thing I would say is I underestimated just how much they would fight us and how much they would try to fight us behind the scenes, waging a vigorous whisper campaign to try to sow doubt and confusion about what our bills would do and about why our bills should not be passed. But I'm glad to say, and spending millions of dollars in the meantime, by the way, but I'm glad to say that we overcame that opposition and that these bills did become law.
And now that the bills have been passed and signed into law, what are some other ways that you're hoping to further protect kids using social media?
Well, look, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a conversation to be had about the role of phones and social media in school that I know the
Mhm.
governor mentioned a few weeks ago she wants to start talking about. I know a lot of parents and educators want to start talking about. I think we need to start talking about it. I also think there's a level of education here as well, right? Just like to use the cigarette or the alcohol example I referenced earlier, yes, we put laws in place to protect minors from cigarettes and alcohol and to ban the sale and the marketing, but we also require family members and parents and loved ones to have conversations with their young people about the harmful effects here. And so I think there's also space here for a conversation amongst families about the role of technology in our lives, how to use it positively, how it can be used negatively, and how to put protections in place for yourself that I think we need to start having. But the onus should never be just on the user and should never be just on the parent. The companies here who are responsible for this need to bear the brunt of this responsibility because they've designed their products intentionally to addict us. They actually study, the impact of slot machine gambling in casinos, and they've tried to replicate that same effect with how they've designed their algorithm and their feeds. And if you notice, you keep scrolling through your feed, you keep coming back for more, for more, for more, just like a gambling addict, keep coming back for more and more and more. One more pull at the slot machine, one more pull, one more pull. It's the same exact thing. So we have a lot more work to do in this space.
Well, certainly a lot to look forward to, but we thank you for taking the time to connect with us on this issue. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
And we were speaking with State Senator Andrew Gounardes, a Brooklyn Democrat. And for more information and resources on the legislation meant to protect children using social media in New York, you can visit our website. Again, that's at nynow.org. You can also subscribe to our newsletter by going to newsletter.nynow.org or by scanning the QR code on your screen.